we welcome you to this edition of the Night Shift postgame. Eric Lopez here with you. The Knights victorious 48-14 over Villanova. You can check us out on all social media platforms. And, of course, check out our articles on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Nick Porcelli will be joining us. He just got back from the stadium. He was in the stands. Kyle Nash will join us later in the show from the stadium, where he is covering the Knights' victory over Villanova as they prove it 3-0. But, of course, the man we're going to get to introduce here, my good friend, former defensive back at UCF, part of the 2017 undefeated Knights. Our good friend Tre Neal back with it. Tre, that was a fun game to watch. Nice, stressless. Give me your thoughts on that win.
Yeah, they came out and executed. That's all. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. This is a game where we have to beat this team convincingly. I think we came out, beat them convincingly. Defensively, they came out locked in, ready to go, and they played very sound football. A little small things you can clean up, but overall they played very sound offensively as well. I think they started off a little bit slow just because, again, Timmy's he hasn't played in 2 years. At least like back at this level. He hasn't played in a while. So just knocking some rust off. But once, as you can see, once he knocked it off, got in the groove, they were humming. And I think that's all you can ask for in this game and against, a team like Villanova,
Nick Porcelli will be joining us momentarily. He's got some questions for Tre as well. But Tre, well, obviously you mentioned Timmy McClain. I think that was the big story going to the game, obviously with John Rice Plumlee's injury.
Yep.
What stood out to you from Timmy? I think we didn't know what to expect. He got some run in the Kent State game, but really the last time we saw him was when he was on the other side of the I-4,
yeah, exactly.
playing against UCF. So what did you think of him and seeing him?
Personally, I thought he looked good. Again, I don't think people know how hard it is to, play and then sit for a year and then kind of have sat pretty much this year too, except he played a little bit early, but now he's back with what we call the ones. He's back with the starting group. So it's a little bit tough to kind of knock that rust off. Just get the timing with the first team, the timing with the O-line, timing with the receivers, running backs, handle, all that stuff. It's hard to just get back into it when you haven't done it in so long. And I thought he looked pretty good. And I thought that's all you could ask for. He has a very live arm. I did not expect that. His arm, he has good arm strength, touch issues, but, those things you can work on. Again, those are just timing things to me at least. But, I mean, he's an athletic kid, can run, can throw. That's all we can ask for. That's what our offense is based around, a quarterback that can do both. So I thought he played pretty well. I thought he was efficient. Missed a few throws, but overall, I thought he played pretty well.
Let's bring in Nick. Nick, you were in the stands there, as we'll bring him in here. Give me your thoughts. What was the fans' kind of feedback there on Timmy McClain?
They were excited to see him. They were hype. That's the best way I can describe it. They were really excited to see him, and I think even specifically some of the runs he made, he juked a couple of defenders that really piqued their interest. So I think he might have created some excitement here in the UCF fan base.
It's good to hear. That's good to hear. Nick, you get a chance to meet Tre Neal here. Send him some questions your way from the standpoint, because Tre, you're going back later in the year, right? You're going to the bounce house later in the season.
Yeah, I'm probably coming up the Baylor game and then homecoming. That's what I know, those two for sure, and then I'm gonna work on probably one more. I always try to get to at least two.
Well, the big news, Tre, on homecoming, they announced that Shaquille O'Neal will be the pregame concert.
I saw. I know, right?
That might have gotten the biggest reaction all game.
Did it?
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be super fun.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
That's pretty good. Nick, all right, Nick, what's your biggest question you have for Tre from the game?
Can you just talk about how you thought the defense performed tonight? Because in my mind, they were the MVP. I mean, they kept that on lock, only giving up that score at the end there. Mm-hmm. And who on that defense do you think stood out the most to you?
Yeah, I mean, just for your first question, the defense, man, they came out locked in. I think that's what you want when, unfortunately, JRP, he went down, not season ending, but he's hurt, so he was going to miss this game. The first thing you think as a defense is, all right, our starting quarterback's out. We got to step up a level. We have to pick it up a notch just to make up for it because, again, the whole quarterback situation was an unknown. We didn't know if Timmy was going to come out lights out like he did today or if he comes out super rusty. So the defense, we just like, we can control our side of the ball. So let's dominate. Let's set the tone. If this is what we have to do the rest of the year and carry, then that's what we need to do. And I think that's the tone they came out with. But specifically the guys, I mean, that front, the D-line, man, they were getting after it. I think they were probably the MVP. I think they're going to be the reason that carries us as far as we go defensively. If those guys can get after the quarterback like they're doing, if Morris Brash and Lee Hunter and all those guys can get after the quarterback, they make the DB's life easier. Those guys are your best friends as DBs. You want those guys humming. You want those guys, pissed off, playing with their hair on fire, because it makes your life easier. And I think that's what will help us a lot. Nakai Martinez, he had a great interception. I got to give my DBs a shout out. But
that's a good segue. That's a good segue there, Trey. You mentioned Martinez because that's one of the questions we have in the chat for you from our good friends, Sons of UCF.
Yeah,
Trey, how impressed are you by Martinez? You mentioned the intercept. Give me your thoughts on him.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I remember last year he was playing, I think they call it the nickel position, nickel star. And he played very well. So to me, when you can play that position well, moving to safety is easy because when you have that skill set, can move back, the only new thing you have to do is you just got to get more run fits. The ball skills, as you saw tonight, he's always had them. Those are things that, to go high point that ball like that, those are things that you expect DBs to do, but everybody can't do that. And then plus to give you the return after it, that's just a bonus on top. But I'm very impressed with him. He's a very solid defender. You can tell he's versatile. He can play, like I said, he can play nickel. He can probably go out and play corner. But I think he's found a nice little settling in at safety where he can make plays, play to the field, play the ball, and he'll come up and make in the run support too. Things you have to clean up. I mean, guys miss tackles. I missed plenty of tackles in my career. So they just got to clean up the technique with that. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that he can be an all-conference player for the next 2 to 3 years. I think, I see that kind of potential. I think that's what he was recruited to be, was an all-conference type of player.
That's high praise. That's where I think we'll take that. You mentioned the defensive line and how they're playing. How much does that help the secondary, Trey? Because that was a question going into the season. Some questions, young secondary, who's playing in these spots. But isn't it a secondary's life a lot easier when the defensive line is dominating and putting pressure?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those, like I said earlier, those guys, you want to be those guys your best friends. If you got to get them a steak, every Friday night before the game, you go out and get them something to make them incentivized to play with their hair on fire. That's what you want. I go back to the times that even when I was a freshman, we had great D-lines when I wasn't playing. And then back to the 2017 year, we had great defensive lines, and that made our job easier. Now, granted, we had great DBs too. But again, if our D-line's not good, it doesn't matter how long we can cover because we can't cover forever. So I think, having a great D-line makes your defensive back life so much easier. It makes it so much easier. So, yeah, I think that's why I think they were the MVP this game. And I think probably going forward, just as we're getting older and we're going to have to get reps to get older, those guys are vets. I mean, Lee Hunter is a beast. Trayvon Morris Brash, he's played a lot of football. A lot of these guys up front have played a lot of meaningful football. So they're going to be the reasons that if we have a great defense, it's probably going to start with them.
Trey, I remember at 17, guys like Pittman and company in a defensive line, I thought they were a key factor to that season because nobody could push us around from the opposite side, right? And then obviously you guys would create turnovers on the back end, but you had, front. Do you see some similarities on the defensive front? Can they be as good as that front was in 17? I know that's how it's early. It's only 3 games. The competition hasn't been at a high level, the opponent that is. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of hype going in with this defensive line, and so far so good. Can they be at that level like in 17 that can't get pushed around? Because that's going to be a key factor as we get into the Big 12.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think they could. I don't ever want to put a ceiling on anybody because I think if you put your mind to it, if you play with the technique they're teaching, and if they play with the tenacity and like they're playing with their hair on fire, those guys are run. It's hard to get those big boys to run. I didn't want to run, and I was a DB. So imagine being 290, 300 plus pounds trying to run. Those guys are getting after it. So yeah, I think they could. They have all the talent in the world to do it. They just, again, now once we get into, the Big 12 play again, I think just from my experience, the only difference going from high school to college the G5 to playing Power 5 teams, it was never the back end guys. It was never the skill players. It was never that. It was the line play. The best thing about 2017 is a lot of those guys were NFL bodies. They either got a shot in the NFL, they're playing in the NFL, or they had their chance. I think you couldn't just move them around. You weren't moving Tony Garrard around. You weren't moving Jemias Pittman around. You weren't moving Tristan Hill around, Joey Connors. Those guys, you weren't doing it. I don't care who we played. We played Auburn. Great offensive line. A lot of those guys are in the NFL now. They couldn't move them around. So I think that's what is the difference as we step up now going into Big 12 play is going to be up front, playing some of these lines and some of these schemes. That's what's going to be the main difference is if our D-line will hold up. Can they play with the same ferociousness, tenacity that they played with the first 3 games? Can they keep it up? Shoot, they might even have to take it up a level. We're going to get to Kansas State. They're a very good team. They lost today, but they're still a good team. Oklahoma's a good team. All these teams in the Big 12, they're going to have to probably step it up, especially now that Timmy's going to be going into another game.
Speaking of Timmy, I'd like to talk about him a little bit. What do you think were his, we really got to see what he could be as a UCF quarterback. What do you think he showed his strengths are, and what do you think he showed that he needs to work on in the future?
Yeah, again, strengths are he's very mobile and he has a strong arm. I think those are 2 things that at the quarterback position, those are the things you want to build on in this new age of football. We're not really under center getting, I formation, heavy formation anymore. You want to be able to have the dual threat abilities of a quarterback. But you don't want to be limited if he can't throw. So he has that going for him. I think he threw a pretty deep ball to what's his name? Javon Baker today in the end zone. Beautiful. And it showed a lot of touch. So he has those aspects that he can show that he has touch. I think right now he just needs to in the short to intermediate game, I think that's where he's going to need to develop a little bit more. Just showing a little bit more touch, a little bit more understanding of ball placement, and accuracy. You look at the box sheet and he was 20 for 28, which he was accurate. That's 75%, I believe, or close to it. But the ball placement is what needs to be better. Sometimes he might lead his receiver too far and they may have to make a great catch. Whereas if he puts it in the right spot, you get some yards after the catch. Things like that is where I think that, but he's a young kid. I think he's a sophomore. He still has a couple more years after this year. So he has time to develop. But I think it's exciting, it sucks that JRP's down. But when he comes back, he's going to finish out the year when he gets back whenever he can. And then I think going into the future, with Timmy, he's going to be a great player. And I think even Dylan Riss showed some flashes too tonight.
I was going to ask you about that because I made a comment earlier this week that I thought this was in a bit of an audition perhaps for 2024 for both Timmy McClain and Dylan Riss. Mm-hmm. As far as this could be the future for UCF quarterbacking next year, depending on how they perform here and however many games they get to play here, depending on how long JRP is. What'd you think of Dylan Riss? I know it was the game was out of hand by the time he came in, but what'd you think of him? And looking at the 2 quarterbacks, do you feel good if it's one of those 2 guys next year as the starter?
Yeah, to talk about Dylan, he showed a lot of he flashed a lot of his tools. I didn't really get to see him run too much, because that's one of the things that you want to see is just the athleticism. I know his high school film, he has a lot of throws on the run. He shows a strong arm, and I saw the strong arm flash tonight. I didn't get to see the mobility part. So that's the only question I want to see. Is he super mobile? Is he mobile enough, or is he not mobile? I think those are really the things you want to look for. But I think we're in good hands. Timmy tonight, he showed a lot of promise. He showed a lot of tools that that can be developed. And I think that's all you can really ask for is the potential, because once we get to the offseason, I know that that's looking forward to 2024. But once we get to that offseason, it's about sharpening those tools. It's about making those tools stronger and making the weaknesses stronger the weaknesses than they are. And I think both of those guys have plenty of potential to lead us. So I think we're in good hands, once we get to 2024.
Mike, let me get a question from the chats here. Michael White, John Walker is going to be special.
Yeah.
You're okay. Go ahead, Trey. There you go. You're excited about it, but John Walker.
Yeah, I was even just watching it. I was just we know the hype about John Walker. He was the the big fish. I think he might be one of the highest recruits we've pulled in at UCF. But I mean, just seeing him in person, seeing how big he is, again, he reminds me of a bigger version of Tristan Hill, who I think was probably one of the best D tackles, if not the best one, to come through UCF. And I heard on the broadcast, they said that this guy might be, the most special guy to come through. And again, I don't want to put ceilings on guys and say, no, he won't be better than this person or not. So again, I think he has all the tools. It's going to be about just putting it all together. People don't understand how hard it is to put it all together, to be these special players, because we're so used to at UCF having all these special players. But I couldn't tell you how many guys that I saw in practice that could have been special, but just couldn't put it together. I think there's so much talent that we've brought in as a school and getting even better as we keep going higher up to the Big 12. Guys, the only difference between them is just going to be putting it together, whether that's off the field, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's even just getting in the playbook and staying in shape, things like that. I mean, we said it last year, Lee Hunter, people say he wasn't in shape, and he was still a great football player last year, not in shape. Now we're seeing, how dominant he can be as an in-shape football player. So it's things like that where you have to put it together, and that's really the only difference that holds people back. So I think if he puts it together, man, the sky's the limit for him.
I'd like to ask you guys both a question, and just to get your opinion on this. So, Eric, you're always asking me to report what was it like in the stands. Well, we all know UCF fans, sometimes they like to complain. The common complaint that I heard in the stands was the amount of flags. I think that the crowd thought they were getting penalized a lot. So my question to you, do you guys think they looked really undisciplined tonight, or do you think people were just a little upset by all the flags because they just happened to come at the biggest moments, most notably Xavier's punt return that got called back?
It's funny you bring that up, Nick, and I'll let Trey answer the question, because Sons of UCF asked about the 2 block in the back penalty. So Nick, it's funny. That's why I love having you in the stands, because you're getting the pulse of the fans' kind of mood there and questions, and it's kind of the same thinking there. Trey, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we had 7 penalties today. It's a lot, but it's not anything that's just like, red flag. That's a whole lot of penalties, at least in my opinion. I think it seemed like that because the timing of it. You have a 93-yard punt return called back. Everybody's super excited, and then you see yellow flag, blocking the back. It's so demoralizing, just even as a team. It's demoralizing as a team, as a fan base. So to see that, it's like, oh, freaking, we lost points because we didn't do this. And then again, I think Kobe Hudson had that long touchdown that got penalized got turned around because of the penalty. So I think that's just what it was. I think it's just the 2 untimely penalties were the reason that, people might have been upset and thinking that it's just a lot of flags being thrown, this, that, and the third. But again, I think the block in the back penalties, it's so bang, bang. They show it on TV and it's in slow motion. It never happens that slow. It's always bang, bang, super fast. It's just one of those things where, at least when I played, do you think your guy that you're about to block is going to make the play? And I think it's hard to really understand it. I think Coach DeWitt used to, when I was there, we went through a lot of different special teams clips, and he would pause it at the moment of truth and be like, do you think this guy can make the play? And I think just seeing that kind of discernment helps you out when you're on the field. So, I think it's just, it's tough, man. It's tough because the game happens so fast. But, I think that's just what they have to think about. Is this guy that I'm about to block going to make the play? Or should I just pull up, and just see and let my guys go? Most of the time that I've seen, just let your guy go. We have some special athletes, as you can see. Hutchinson's he's a heck of an athlete, and Kobe Hudson as well. Those guys are, they're special. So kind of just want to let them make the plays.
I'm curious, Trey, from a players and coaches standpoint, are you aware of who's officiating your game? Like in the NBA, basketball, there's certain officials that players know, like, oh, this guy calls it tight. Or this guy calls it, or in baseball, the umpire has a certain strike zone. Do you guys, as players, coaches, do you have an idea of the crew you have and what their tendencies are, or is that kind of overblown in football?
So I think player-wise, we don't really go into that because we have so much more game planning. We do it for the players, kind of. But just now that you mentioned it, as DBs, we would talk to the officials before the game. We'd be like, hey, like this isn't a flag. Like we're gonna be doing it's gonna be physical because you want to put it in their head like, at least as DBs, like it's gonna be physical because really you just want to get away with a little bit more tugging than you think you could. A little bit more shoving than you think you could. Playing a little bit more physical to where the ref will just swallow the whistle. That's what you want as a defender. On offense, you would go and be like, hey, these guys pull at the hip a lot. This guy number right here, he pulls at the jersey. Just watch. He's very slick with it. So I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship in that. But the coaches, I do know, they know the refs. They would tell us in a lot of our meetings, like, hey, this ref's coming. This is who we have the referees, especially in a lot of the like interconference battles with like when we went to the one I remember, we went to Maryland. And I think we had Big 12 refs or maybe ACC refs, not one that we were accustomed to.
Right.
And they just say, hey, this is what they do. They call this a little bit more lenient. They don't call this as much. Like, so I think the coaches have a very good grasp of the reffing crew that they have. But us as players, we don't really know the refs by name. We know some of the conference guys. I remember a few of them. But we pretty much just try to talk to them before the game, be like, hey, they do this. Watch for it. We're going to be playing physical. Just let us play. It's a man's game. That we're going to play physical. It's things like that you just want to have them pre-prepared going into it, knowing how you want to play.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting. Obviously, when we get into Big 12, we're going to have Big 12 officials. Exactly. That's going to be fascinating to see. Mark Daniels has always made this point. He's never understood why there's officials assigned, like conference officials. You don't have that in other sports. It is unique because it creates this kind of paranoia. Like, hey, this officiating crew's from this conference, so they might favor this league or whatever. So it's kind of interesting when that's kind of a subplot to some of these games. So I was just curious what players and coaches' perspective, how they kind of dealt with some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so like in the Peach Bowl, I know in the bowl games they try to mix it because they don't want to have that that influence. But I mean, most of the time, if you're making the flag, if you're doing something illegal, what you can get away with, not get away with. But they're humans, they're going to miss calls. They're going to blow calls. It's a part of it. It's not like we instant replay every play, or, we'd be playing football for 24 hours, literally. I think there's just the human error that makes the sport fun. I like to be, upset as a fan now, just as my fanship. I like to be upset that they miss a call. I like to be upset, even if it's for us. I'm like, oh, they missed that holding. Thank goodness. Or it's like, oh, come on, ref. You missed the blatant holding. It goes both ways. And I think that's just what makes the game fun, at least for me and my experiences so far.
I gotten questions on the chat about Xavier Townsend. Your thoughts on Xavier Townsend and the role that he's had in the offense the last 2 weeks in particular?
Yeah, he's a very explosive player, man. I think he might be one of the parts that we were missing as like the third receiver option. I think is what we were missing a little bit last year. We knew what Javon Baker could do. We have always had a pretty good run game, and our tight ends are solid. I think we were missing that guy in the slot that could dominate downfield, or maybe we just didn't utilize them guys in the slot like that until this year. Because I thought that I forgot his name, O'Keefe last year. I thought he was pretty good in that role. But maybe they just didn't utilize him in that role. But I think now, again, he's a very explosive player. It's almost just get the ball in his hands and see what he can do with it. I think that's what Gus is trying to do. And Henshaw, I think that's what they're trying to do. Let Javon and let Kobe be the route runner kind of guys. Let Xavier, not Hutchinson. I don't know why I keep saying that. Let Xavier just get him the ball in space and let him make a play. I think that's what he's going to be great at.
One thing I'd like to talk about is tonight's attendance. Tonight was sold out. The official attendance that they listed was 44,206, I believe.
Legit? Yeah. Was it legit, Nick? You were in the stands. Was it legit? Was it packed?
It was packed. And the fans are crazy. Honestly, it's probably the most fun I've ever had at a UCF game at my entire school year so far.
Wow.
Just saying something. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. I got to be honest. If this was last year, I don't know if that would happen because of the opponent. Not saying like no one would show up, but I think there'd be some seats available because, it's an FCS team. Mm-hmm. But this year it's packed. What do you think that says? Because to me, I'm seeing, this community is getting really excited about this football team.
Well, it helps that it's the first year of the Big 12, right, Trey?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a big part of it. The season tickets are up. Yeah, that helps.
That helps. I mean, that tremendously helped. I mean, playing that Big 12 schedule, this is new territory for UCF. We're not used to seeing, we're about to play Kansas State. We're about to play Kansas. Like, these are, some blue bloods, maybe not necessarily in football, but, as far as just brand recognition, a lot of people know the Kansas Jayhawks. They know Kansas State. They know, Texas, Oklahoma. These are big brand football that, now we're about to step on the field with them, year in and year out. So I think that kind of drives the excitement. And again, I think the guys are playing great football right now. I think the offense is humming. I think the defense is playing lights out. That's what you want to see as a fan. You want to see your team dominate every week. People ask, how can Alabama fans, I use them as an example, show up when they're playing all these, like a Mercer or this? I'm like, because they love to see their team dominate. That's just as fun as watching anything else to them, and I think that's where we're getting to that point at UCF, where the fans love to see us dominate, which that's what we're starting to do. We're beating the teams that we should beat. And it also does help, though, that we're going to the Big 12. And I think now, if it was rowdy at Villanova, I can't imagine when we play Baylor, when we play West Virginia at homecoming. I think those games are going to be rowdy because not only are we playing Big 12, but these are good football teams. These guys are just as talented now, if not, just as talented of guys that are going to be on the field. I think the last few years, UCF, we've had the advantage of we're very talented because we're in a talent-rich state. We can get, go to Orlando, go to Tampa, go to Miami, go to Jacksonville and Tallahassee. We're centralized, so we can get a lot of the best talent in this state. Now we're about to go again to Oklahoma. Those guys get a lot of the best talent around where they're at. West Virginia gets a lot of the best talent. Kansas State, so I think that's going to be very exciting. I think that drives the excitement, playing quality competition, big-time games now, at least from the fans' perspective, because they're more brand recognition teams around the country.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Atmosphere you played in the bounce house. Best atmosphere.
Probably it's got to be that. It's either that UCF game or the USF game.
The Black Friday game, right?
Yeah,
I remember that one for me. That's the packed. It was pretty amazing atmosphere for a 3:30 kick.
Yeah, I mean I was like, wow, this is what you sign up for. I think that was probably number one. A close two is probably the conference championship the next week, just because Memphis, again, it's the conference championship game. We're playing a team that we've already played. We're hosting a conference championship. I think just even that atmosphere, because I think conference championship week, that's like one of those exclusive weeks where only a few teams are playing. Everybody's not playing right now. You're getting the big time game. Everybody's watching. So I think that was an awesome atmosphere as well. But yeah, probably that Friday night USF game was probably the best one. That was amazing atmosphere.
Well, and those two are very good. Nick, obviously, that Memphis game, I forgot how it ended. It was an interception by someone. Who was that? Oh, wait, that was
I don't know. It was a good one, though. It was a good one.
But let me ask you this from a player standpoint, though, because the Baylor game is sold out. I believe most of the Big 12 games except Houston is sold out. If not, it's close. How big of a factor is that? Because players know, right? You could tell based on the environment. Just talk about it from a player standpoint. What an atmosphere that we're going to see in a couple of weeks, and what UCF, quite frankly, is going to have to deal with on the road. Okay, because with all due respect, we're not going to Tulsa. We're not going to these like American places like Temple where there's like 10,000 people. It's going to be packed.
You're going to Oklahoma. Norman will be packed.
Right. Yeah. So give me the player's perspective on that. If what's that like, and how much of how does a player? How does that affect them? When they're at home and they have the home crowd with them, but also like next week, UCF's going to Manhattan, the environment they'll be dealing with.
Yeah. It's big, man. I mean, as football players, just as athletes, you try not to buy into the hype of, getting distracted by fans. But again, the plays are probably 4 or 5 seconds long, and then we're doing a lot of waiting. It can get deafening sometimes. And I'm just speaking from at least UCF right now. Playing at home when that crowd is rocking, when that crowd is rowdy, it can be deafening. And we've had plenty of examples to where that pressure does build up to you, and it can get to you. It can get to the O-line. It can get to, the kickers. It can get to everybody. I think that's why you do need a sold-out crowd. That's why you do need, crazy fans. You don't want just fans just sitting there enjoying the game. You want guys that are losing their mind, screaming, just like how passionate we are on the field. We want that in the stands. And like you said, vice versa. You're going to go, I think they go to Manhattan in 2 weeks, or no, next week.
Next week, prime time, yeah.
That place is going to be crazy. They go to Oklahoma in a few weeks. Place is going to be packed and crazy. And it does help when, away, you really just want to, it's us against the world. We're walking into the Lions territory right now. Fans are going to be yelling at you. They're going to be saying stuff. They're going to be saying a whole lot of stuff, and some of it's not even good stuff. I think that's what makes the game fun. As long as they don't take it too far, I think that's what makes it, the environment, fun. That's what makes getting up for these games so fun, performing for these games so much fun, at least in my perspective. I didn't necessarily get nervous because I didn't worry about it, but I love the trash talk. I love the, the hypeness that the fans come, because, when we go in there and win, we love to take their spirits away, because now we're leaving laughing, who got the last laugh. I think that's what it's all about. And that's what makes sports fun, So, yeah, I love it when the stands are packed, they're rocking, whether we're home or away. It's just a different mentality. I love it at home just because I know our fans, on third down, they're going to get loud, man. That's what they do. And I love just being on the road, making it silent. You can hear a pin drop. That's the best feeling too.
All right, Nick, you heard Trey. You got to get crazy and loud in a couple of weeks. Oh, yeah. Okay, you got to leave your vocal cords out there. What's the toughest environment you played on the road?
Let's think. The toughest environment on the road would probably the SMU game, the 2017 season. That
really?
Was probably,
okay.
Yeah, because we kind of let them get that crowd. See, and that's the thing. When you go on the road, you want to get the crowd out of it immediately. Like you want those guys, like you're saying, we're staying the whole game. You want them leaving in the second quarter. You don't want to keep them in it. You want them deflated. I think early on they had like a great touchdown where the guy broke like 4 tackles, 5 tackles. So the fans they're going nuts. And again, as UCF, we were the big dogs at the time. We're the ones that we're getting everybody's best shot. So you let them hang around. I think that was probably one of the toughest road games we played, just because they were a very good team. And they were in that game a while. Oh no, actually I take that back. Navy. That was probably
Annapolis, right?
Yeah. Wow, those guys. You want to talk about some soldiers going crazy? It was beautiful just seeing the pageantry of it. A lot of their pregame stuff to fly over. Amazing. But those soldiers will get rowdy, man. I'm telling you, those guys are yelling, they're screaming. But that's what makes it fun. And then again, we let them hang around when they shouldn't. So that stadium was rocking. So it was probably either those two, either SMU that year or Navy, as like the actual away game. Now the Peach Bowl was freaking crazy too, just because you're talking 95, 100,000 people in there. But that was more neutral site.
Right.
This is true. What's the biggest question you have now about this team going into Big 12? What are you curious about this team moving forward and how they may handle a certain thing in a particular area of the game? What questions do you have now moving forward as they get ready for Kansas State, who lost today and on a 61-yard field goal to Missouri?
Yeah,
that was wild.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a little annoyed. And they are the defending Big 12 champions. I think people forget that because TCU played for the title game.
Yeah, they beat
TCU in the Big 12 enough championship game. So what's the biggest questions now you have for this UCF team going into Manhattan next week?
So going at the beginning of the year, it was just going to be, how are these guys going to perform now that we're in the Big 12? I think now that JRP's hurt and we've seen 3 games, we look very dominant offensively, just, in the run game. And every aspect, we're looking very good. At least the numbers say we're very good. I'm interested to see now again, this is big boy football. Let's call it what it is. We're going into the Big 12. this is going to be the first test of the season to see where we're really at. Boise State loved that game because we showed resilience. I think we moved the ball well against them, but things weren't going our way. But these guys showed resilience. Kent State and Villanova, they handled their business. That's what the good teams do. So now we're about to go play some good teams. How are these guys going to respond to if Timmy starts off a little bit slow? He's a fresh starter. Are they going to be pissed off, start yelling at him, start having some issues? Or are they going to be like, hey, man, we got you? At least from the defensive end. That's what I'm going to speak to. Because that's what we did when Mackenzie Milton early on in his career, and if he started off slow. Because we know we're only going as far as you can take us, because he was a special quarterback. I think the quarterbacks we've had are special quarterbacks. They're special talent. And when they're on, as you can see, they can play some high-level football. So I think it's going to be when they have those lulls, who on the defense is going to step up and be like, hey, we got you. Like, pick it up. You're going to pick it up. You're going to be good. How are they going to respond? Offensively, what's Javon Baker? What's Kobe Hudson if Timmy starts off slow? Are they going to go pout in the corner and say, man, we need blah, 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 blah? Or are they going to be like, hey, we're good. Just keep doing it. That's what I think I want to see. I want to see when adversity hits versus a quality opponent versus a team that can beat you, how do they respond? Because I think that's what makes championship teams. If you can't respond well, you're going to lose a lot of those close games. And I promise you, a lot of these Big 12 games are going to be close because the competition is better. The players are better. I think that's or for example, we're going to go to Oklahoma. We have adversity and can't respond. They'll beat us by 60 points. These teams are talented. It's not going to be games where we can hang around and just kind of lollygag and be pissed off and we lose by 7 or we lose by 3.
Because things unravel quickly when
exactly.
It snowballs, and we
Yeah.
see it a ton of times in the bigger conferences.
Yep.
If you don't come ready to play.
Yep.
And so I think you're right. That's going to be interesting to see how they come out with. And, Coach Gus has talked a lot about how they've worked in close game situations because he's anticipating a lot of close games in the Big 12 because he's experienced enough, done it in the SEC. When you hear him say that, what are some situations that you think they work on in close game situations? What kind of drills can you do to duplicate a close game situation? And he talked about that helping them last week in the Boise State win.
Yep.
What hit when you heard that? What goes through your mind?
Yeah, so there's so many situations that can come up in a game that you have to be prepared for on the fly. Everybody knows the 2-minute drill. Say you're down by 3, 2 minutes. You know how fast you need to go. You know the tempo you need to go. If you need to slow it down. You don't want to score too. It's so many situations like that you prepare for, and the way you do it is in practice. So we'll get into points of periods of the practice where it's period 17, for example. It's down by 4. Ones versus ones. Y'all are down by 4. Got to drive and score for a touchdown. You have 1:30, and you have 2 timeouts starting at the 20. So the offense, it's just like a live football game. Everything except tackling, it's live calls, it's everything. So that's how you kind of get the practice. And again, that's one of those things where we would talk about it pre-practice. We talk about it, once we get on the sideline, and once it happens, if we do well or not. The outcome isn't the problem. It's, can you articulate what's about to happen? Can you articulate while the gunshots are being fired? Do you freeze and just panic like a deer in headlights? Or are you still able to talk? Are you still able to communicate what you need? When you see this motion, can you do this? Do I need to fall in bounds? Do I need to get out of bounds when I get the ball? Things like that is what you practice and you talk about. And that was actually, that Memphis game is what I was saying on the sideline, once we got into overtime. Because, again, overtime's a whole different situation. We both get the ball. Hey, if we get the ball first, I think that was one of the things they recorded. I was telling all our defensive guys, if we go on defense first and we get an interception or a fumble return, take it to the house and end the game now. But if we score first and we're on defense second and we get an interception, fall, because you don't want to fumble and give them the ball back. So I think it's talking about those things, going through those situations in practice. You rep it so many times because when you get to the game, you don't want to be a deer in headlights. You want to be, I've been in this situation plenty of times. I know exactly what to do. I know what I need to do, offensively as well. So I think that's what he alludes to. Because that being good in those situations is what to me, what makes championship teams. Those are the difference between wins and losses. Being a good red zone team, being a good 2-minute team, offensively, defensively, being a good third down team, offensive, defensively. You work those situations so much so that when you get to the game, you're ready for them. So I think that's what Gus is alluding to.
Elo, I want to jump back to your question for Trey earlier where you asked what is one of your biggest questions coming out of this game. Mine, unfortunately, happened to be that, during early in the game, Alec Holler went down, and, I haven't seen any updates on him. If that injury is serious.
We'll ask Kyle Nash, who is trying to join us here momentarily. We'll ask him since he just got done with Postgame.
Yeah, I'd like to.
We'll definitely ask him there.
I'm hoping for good news on that, but if it's not good news and he's missing some time, what do they need to do with tight end?
Again, it's next man up. I think, just me personally, I think we've recruited at a level now from when I got there to this point, which is almost 10 years. It's crazy. That we have very good depth. We're starting to recruit at that top 25 in the country level. So while Alec Holler, he is going to be a tremendous, if he's out, I don't know what the injury is, but if he's out for an extended period of time, it's going to be a loss. But the next man is up. We might not know who the next man is now, but if say he's out for 3 weeks and this next man steps up, he might be the guy. He might be even better than Alec Holler. We don't know that. So I think us that we've recruited this well to this point, even in the transfer portal, we've gotten guys to this point. I think this is what makes a great team is the depth. That's what separates, the top 25 teams from the rest of the country is guys can get hurt, you replace them. As we saw today, JRP, he's a great quarterback. He got hurt. Tim McClain comes in and replaces. A lot of quarterbacks can't. I mean, you just saw that at the Alabama game. Those guys are hurting at quarterback right now.
They got 3 quarterbacks. They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, So I think having that luxury, we can take advantage of it sometimes and not appreciate it. But so I think it's just next man up, and we're gonna see.
All right, we're gonna bring in Kyle Nash, who is setting up as we speak at the bounce house somewhere. Oh, he just went off. I feel like there's internet issues. Nick, what was the internet situation like at the stadium? Is it still bad?
Well, remember how I said I didn't see any updates? That's because I couldn't check Twitter or anything. The Wi-Fi is still bad, yes.
Oh.
Yep.
I thought they said they were upgrading this stuff. I guess they didn't work.
We went over this in the first night shift, man. That's not.
Trey, are you take notes of this because you're going to be there in 2 weeks. I'm going to hope to find you.
Maybe it's the Big 12 package hasn't kicked in yet, so maybe they're saving it for the Big 12 games.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's very good. Let's hope they figured that out. We'll let you go on this. What are you? You're going to be here in 2 weeks. It's going to be a historic day for that Baylor game. What's going to enter your mind as you enter that stadium? You're going to see the Big 12 logos. It's going to be super packed. We don't know what time the game is until we will find out actually on Monday. So we don't know if it's a day or night game. But as one of the players, one of many players that have put on that uniform and help kind of get UCF to where it is today, what's going to cross your mind here in 2 weeks?
I'm just going to be excited, man. I was talking to my wife, that's actually the first time I've had to say it live.
Hey, that's a wife, a former softball conference champion herself.
Yeah.
By the way.
And we were talking about just, how far we've come from when we got there. We were always the kind of the overlooked school, and we were just talking like, when did it happen to where it's like, okay, UCF, like, this is our brand, like our brand is exciting, young, like energetic, like have fun playing it, but be very dominant doing it. When did that brand happen? And I was just like, I point to the 2017 team, but then I'm like, but the Fiesta Bowl team kind of set us up, so I'm just going to be excited because I know the work that, when I was there, what we put in, I know the work because I came in after that Fiesta Bowl year. So they were on us hard, man, as freshmen. They're like, you guys haven't done anything. We worked to get to this Fiesta Bowl. We're not going to let you guys just take advantage of it. And a lot of us took that to heart. Like, you're right. Like, you guys built something great. We want to make it greater. And I think that's what our class, and I think the 2014 and 15, that was always our goal. be better than that Fiesta Bowl team. Make UCF greater than that. We didn't know how we were going to do it. We were naive, 18-year-olds. But we wanted to build it great. And now just seeing it again 4 or 5 years later to that, they've taken it to that step. And not just football. I think softball's taking that step. Women's volleyball's taking that step. Baseball, basketball. There's so many historic moments that have led up to this point at UCF that now we're here. Now we've always wanted to be Big 12. We've always wanted to be Power 5 respected, probably Power 4 soon. But this is the moment that we waited on. So I'm just excited. I'm excited to see Baylor, see the Big 12 jerseys live, see the Big 12 logo on the field, and just take it all in. I think it's going to be fun. Every time I get there, I feel like I see some new renovation that's going on around campus. And I think that's awesome too. Because again, man, if those guys could see what UCF looked like, the Wayne Dench in 2014, they think we were in high school still, man. So I think that part I think it's exciting just to see that, and just see how far we come, almost 10 years since, I first stepped on campus.
Hey, well, listen, me and all my friends here on UCF, we are just super excited to be here in the Big 12. And we all know that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for what you and your teammates in 2017 did. So on behalf of all UCF fans, I just want to say thank you.
Absolutely. And this is what I always tell like the younger guys, not saying like you're young, but
he's young.
Yeah, just enjoy it, man. I tell them, I'm like, just enjoy being able to root for a very good football team. I was like, because I was a part of that 0-12 team where there were people wearing trash bags over their head. We probably barely had 100 people in the stands, and we took pride in that. Like, that hurt a lot of us to see that, because who wants to get up to come to a game where the stands are empty, So we took pride in wanting guys to come see us play football. So just enjoy it, man, because again, you never know. I mean, you look at USF; they were a great school. They were a great football team when I played them in 2017, and now, I mean, they had a good game against Alabama. I'll give them that credit.
That's more of Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not give them any credit there.
Okay, yeah, we'll take that back. But just to see how far that program has shifted so quickly, that's what I just tell all the guys, like, man, just enjoy it, because again, you never know. I don't wish that for us, of course not, but you never know, man. So just enjoy it, have fun, and just live it up, man. Because again, you're entering into the golden era. We thought we were in the golden era. No, you guys are going in the Big 12. You guys are really in the golden era. You're going to experience this is what we dreamed of when we were playing, as fans going to games.
Well, who's living or having fun right now is our friend Kyle Nash, who's finally figured out the tech issues. Before we let you go, Trey, I want you to say hello to our good friend Kyle Nash. Kyle, we got Tre Neal.
There we go.
Hey.
Say hello.
Hello, man.
Hey, Trey, good to talk to you again for the first time in a long time.
Absolutely,
I was the guy that kept asking you how cool it was to have the first interception on the year and then have the last one.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So, no, good to hear from you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it.
Trey, this is Kyle Nash's 24 hours, right? He's covering UCF Villanova, and in about 12 hours, he's going to be in Jacksonville in a press box covering Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's going to be a game. That's going to be a game.
I'm just saying, if the guy's doing well for himself.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Trey, I'll tell you what, you were the first defensive player I talked to in 2017. So, it all starts with talking to you back 6 years ago, right?
Yeah. It's got to start somewhere. I'm glad I could be a small little part, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right, Trey, we will let you go, my friend. Say hello to your great, beautiful wife. Tell her I miss her. We will hope to. Will I see her in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, she'll be up here in a couple of weeks. We'll catch up, Elo. We'll catch up.
Sounds good, man.
If any of you guys, we'll talk to Elo, and I'll find you guys and meet you, and catch up if we can.
Kyle is like a big timer now. He's hanging out in the press box.
Hey, man, hanging out with Patrick Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean,
I get it. It comes with the territory. I get it.
See, if I really wanted to flex, I'd have said I already hung out with Patrick LeVon Mahomes II in Arizona for the Super Bowl. But,
Exactly.
Wow.
That's how it is.
Wow. Going there. Okay. All right. Trey, we'll let you go, man. Thanks for hanging out with us, sir. Great analysis,
Absolutely.
and we'll definitely get you back on here in the near future. But in the meantime, enjoy the week, man. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys later, man. Elo, I'll talk to you later, man.
Sounds good. Tre Neal joining us here on Night Shift. We shift to Mr. Kyle Nash, who I was worried for a couple minutes there, Kyle. You were trying to get in. You have some tech issues. I mean, we got some we still have some internet clicks over there, issues over there at the Browns house.
Listen, rather than go through the list of issues I had to try to overcome, how about we just get into talking about some dang football? I didn't mean to follow up Tre Neal with my work as an IT employee. So
fair enough, because obviously, yes, you're a very busy guy. Question that both Nick and even Trey, a lot of people have asked. Alec Holler. I thought he was okay. What did you hear any about injuries in general in the postgame?
Yeah, he didn't really come up in the post game, mostly because he basically left the field on his own power. Obviously there were a number of other guys who didn't even start the game because they're battling various injuries, right? Notable Ricky Barber did not play. Bula Schmidt also starting at the guard position, was not starting at the guard position tonight. Medley came in on his behalf at that left guard spot. So there's a whole lot of other, positions that are in, let's say, in greater question than even Alec Holler at the moment. But like I said, got off into the field on his own power. I would imagine they kind of shut him down for the night for the most part after that, because he's going to be a big part whatever they're trying to do in the run game. Most particularly, obviously, as a tight end, you catch passes as well. But listen, Alec Holler's all over the field, challenging guys even bigger than him to try to get involved in the run game. Very huge to have him on the field.
What's your take on the game now? You've had a little time to digest it. Obviously, I was there for the Gus presser. What's the overall thoughts on tonight's performance in the game?
Well, Coach Malzahn put it best, I think, when he said the thing they were most trying to take care of was the football on the night. No turnovers. Granted, they had the opportunity to give the ball away a couple times, couple early errant throws by Timmy McClain. A couple of issues with the snap exchange. You may have noticed the change at the center position that took place to sort of correct that. Not that anybody who is taking snaps at the center position is not good at their job, but I think there was some exchanges there. Coach said in particular they had to get that cleaned up. That's why they made the change at center.
What do you think of Timmy McClain?
For the most part, I didn't feel like he had a bad game. I'm not here to say that. I'm a little concerned with how long his delivery takes. I felt like he was back there. He had a long time behind an offensive line that, clearly dominated in front. The idea, I'm sure the game plan from moment one was to bully Villanova all over the field, which is what happened, to no one's surprise. And at the end of the day, the throw, other than the first long throw he threw on the evening, I didn't feel like he made any other obviously bad decisions. There were some throws he made that I don't think I would have made, in his position, but I don't feel like there were any other passes other than the one that was truly in danger of being a turnover. And hey, listen, a couple of times where there were disasters in the backfield, takes the ball, turns something out of nothing. Granted, will he be able to do that against a Power 5 team coming up in the rest of the season? Probably not. But the fact that he had that opportunity to make that happen, it's a big deal. I actually asked Timmy what was going through his mind when, the one play happened, the fumble took place, and he was trying to hand it off to Johnny Richardson and take it outside. What was going through his head? Basically what he said is once he realized catastrophe had taken place, his words, I just treated it like it was backyard ball at that point. And, he just took off and tried to, do what he could with it. And fortunately, it worked out well. Something Coach Malzahn definitely took note of to see is definitely a good thing on the night.
That's pretty good. Nick, you got questions for Kyle there from what you're curious about? Well, you're muted, Nick, so you cannot ask if you're muted. That's
okay, now I am back.
There you go.
So sorry, my Wi-Fi went out, so I don't know if this got answered, but did Coach Malzahn at all give any update on Alec Holler at all?
Yeah, he didn't really come up. It's kind of presumed. I don't think anybody asked about it since he came off the field of his own volition there. But, yeah, it'll be nice to have him next week as a big part of the blocking in the run game against Kansas State.
What did you think of Devin Riz in the few places that he came in for?
You know, he did. The biggest crime was the long ball he had that was not hauled in. I think he threw in a pretty good pass. Yeah, I think he threw a good ball. He didn't throw it over the top of the receiver, but because that's where the safety was. And at the end of the day, the receiver has to make the play on that ball. It's funny. Coach Malzahn was asked about that. He had two clear winces of things he felt like should have gone well, and it basically hurt his soul that they didn't go right. One of them was that pass by Rizek not taking place the way that it should have, and also the called back 92-yard punt return by Xavier Townsend. Coach said that one hurt in particular.
No doubt. Let me read you here what Michael White had to say. Kind of get your reaction, Kyle. All the young bucks on defense getting valuable playing time tonight. Braden Marshall must have been sick missing out on the pick six. Even with all the O-line mixing, it looked like it's merely little details and game experience that's lacking. Still had a good pass protect, rushing yards. Your thoughts on the line on both sides overall tonight?
I mean, just as dominant. They were the game plan. Point blank, and the story. And you know, I'll put it this way. I am more confident in this line going into conference play than last year at this point. It would be very interesting to see. Unfortunately, we can't because, you know, life and things happen. I would have been interested to see what John Rice Plumlee would do against Kansas State. We won't see that. But, you know, I feel like in a lot of ways, this was obviously Timmy McClain's Kent State game. I think the biggest mistakes weren't really ones where he was just saying, we're going to go chuck it. But, you know, in his words after the game, he said it took time for him to kind of get past the butterflies, to get settled in. And listen, UCF fans should be thanking their lucky stars that they had the opportunity to get him to do that against the Wildcats of Villanova rather than the Wildcats of Kansas State.
Kyle, as I mentioned on the podcast, no Jay Wright. You know, this is what happens. This is Raleigh Massimino, not coaching. You know, this is what happens there. Give me your game balls. If you had to give out game balls, if they said, Kyle, come into the locker room, give out some game balls. Who are you giving game balls to?
Well, absolutely. You have to give one to RJ Harvey. I think, you know, he kind of carried the game on his back, was the main producer. Might have heard, guys, kind of an athlete, that dude. He's pretty good. You know, for my money, too, might want to put one Kobe Hudson's way. Had a touchdown stolen from him on an inexplicable call of a block in the back when the defensive back is running away from the play like a coward. Asking about those. Rewarded for it.
People were asking about those the penalties. I'm not happy with it.
A complete trash call. This was way worse than the targeting call. At least that one, I could understand last week why they didn't call that targeting. This was completely asinine. A player turns and runs away from a play. That is not a block in the back. And frankly, somebody should be reprimanded. Absolutely stupid.
Tell me how you really feel, Kyle.
I'm not cursing, Eric. What do you want me to tell you?
Do you know the crew by any chance? Like what crew?
It's perhaps better that I don't.
Fair enough. Oh, I hope this is part of the recap of your article when it comes up out in Black and Bannerette. That's all I got to say.
Well, I mean, there will be certain elements of night class that we're touching on here that'll go into greater detail once it's dropped on the blackandgoldbanneret.com.
Very good. Let's move attention. People love that rant, by the way. That might be.
I swear to God, Kyle sounds like the fans that were sitting by me in the student section. He would fit right
obviously, also much less cursing, I hope.
I don't know about that. So let me ask you this, Kyle. How many? Every team has. You know, you always have when you cover a team, you have questions going into a season.
Right.
How many of those questions have been answered, and which questions do you still have now that UCF? It's going to happen. It's real now. A week from tonight, Big 12 opener at Kansas State.
I mean, all of them and none of them, right? I mean, at the end of the day, no opponent that they were facing was really going to stack up to the defending champion of the conference in Kansas State at this point. Now, granted, not taking anything away from Boise, they put up a heck of a fight. But, I mean, we talked about that plenty, about how UCF had a night that was so bad that the football gods thoroughly forsook them throughout the – I don't know that forsook is a word, but that's where we're going – had forsaken them throughout the evening, and they still came to win the day anyway. You know, other than that, it's a pair of, with all due respect to the opponents in question, cupcakes, right? I don't know how much we can learn from that. What we did see, though, are the hopes and buildings of a team that might be able to at least compete, right? I was talking, with people in the press box and around, like it wouldn't be shocking to still see UCF get a 9.5 point underdog number going into prime time against Kansas State. And especially now that they're going to be ticked off after losing a heartbreaker from a 61-yard kick from Mizzou there, you think they're going to be a little bit more angry and all that other stuff. But the questions, it's funny. What questions have we had answered, Elo? All of them and none of them. We've seen the depth go to work. We've seen young guys do things, right? But we haven't seen them do it against competition that is commensurate with explosive Big 12 offense that we're supposed to see, know, and love. Death taxes in the over in the Big 12 is allegedly supposed to be the certainties in life. That's something that UCF hasn't faced yet overall offensively. They haven't faced anybody explosive. They'll get that opportunity next week.
You mentioned Kansas State lost to Missouri on a 61-yard field goal walk-off again at Missouri, so they're going to drop in the polls a little bit. In a Big 12 that's kind of all over the place right now. I mean, some of these results are fascinating right now. For example, Iowa State lost to Ohio. Just a brutal loss there. Matt Campbell might be in for a long year.
It's good to see somebody called the what is that? Ohio's the Bobcats, not the Wildcats. Sorry, I was going to say, be nice if somebody called Wildcats had success today. I don't know.
Your boy Mike Gundy, a tough one, losing at home to South Alabama, 33-7. UCF will host Oklahoma State November the 11th. Tough one for Gundy and the Cowboys. They might need to find some offense there. We'll see if they do. Oklahoma, Dylan Gaber actually won a game in Tulsa, guys. They won 66-17 over the Golden Hurricanes. Cincinnati losing at home to Miami of Ohio, 31-24 in that one. So Texas struggled with Wyoming in that one. Perhaps a little letdown from the game against Alabama, though. If you watched
Speaking
Alabama
of letdowns, right?
Yeah, it's not good. So. But my point is, there's this Big 12. It's kind of all over the place. They're beating each other up. I don't know if there's a great team in the league, so there's opportunities here for UCF. But at the same time, like you said, we still have questions about this team, and now particularly with Timmy McClain going on the road, going into Manhattan, Kansas. That's going to be an interesting storyline. And do you think, some people are asking the question, do you think Kansas State maybe will stack the box and make them a thrower? Do you think that'll be? We'll start seeing more of that.
Yeah, you would certainly hope that that's what they're going to try to do. That's, I shouldn't say you would hope, but that's the smart money, right? But by the same token, too, I feel like if the offensive plan calls plays to the outside, you use a Johnny Richardson, you get a screen out there to RJ Harvey, that offensive line gets out in front, you might be able to do a little bit of damage. Because if you're stacking the box, the interior is pulled further inside, it's tougher for them to get outside. So there's ways around that. You just have to kind of see which matchups you like the best to set that up. But yeah, you would expect them to stack the box, but who knows? Maybe at the end of the game, this own line could still get that push, right?
No, indeed. Nick, you got any last questions for Kyle? We're not going to keep him too long. The guy's going to be in Jacksonville. Although the way he's fired up tonight, he might literally just drive now. Might just go to the stadium now because he's got a lot. He's fired up.
Well, first of all, Elo, you missed one big Big 12 result. Iowa State losing to Ohio.
No, I mentioned that.
No, he mentioned that.
Oh, okay, you cut out. That must have been it. I'm still can't believe that. But before you go, I want to talk a little about Xavier Townsend because yes, unfortunately, he did not get that touchdown, but he was getting the biggest reactions from the stands today on punt return because he was making so many good cuts, jukes. He had a ton of yards. Can you talk a little about his performance?
Explosive is how he operates. No matter when he has his hands on the ball, like this is the closest thing UCF has had to an Otis Anderson type in years since that 2017-2018 era. And so obviously it's exciting to see a guy that can do that. Also, a converted running back now running routes, occasionally involved in running plays still as well every now and again. This is the kind of utility guy you're looking for that can do a little bit of everything. And hey, listen, if you're looking for success at the next level as a running back, you can't just be handed the ball and do things. You got to demonstrate you have several skill sets if you're trying to get to the next level. And I think, Xavier Townsend certainly making his campaign for possessing those skills, right?
Yeah. He's a fan favorite, isn't he, Nick? I mean, you're in the state. You can tell. Is he one of those that like, hey, we got to get him the ball. We got to get him the ball.
He is for me, but that's because.
You're not unique, Nick. You're not unique. Even in the press box, everybody's calling for Xavier Townsend to get the football.
Okay. Hey, look, I feel biased because he's from Tampa, and his high school, Berkeley, I could walk there from my house growing up. So
I can't speak to any of that. I can only speak to the voices I hear, and they like Xavier Townsend with his hands on the football.
But he's also talented, so good.
There's that.
Yeah. How was the press box tonight, Kyle?
Relatively empty, as one would expect. Apparently, we had a second spot up there. I don't know who was supposed to fill it, but that's a whole other question.
I would have gone up there. She called me. It was getting hot down in the stands.
No comment.
I have a feeling it'll be a little different in a couple of weeks when Baylor, by the way, is getting the win column. They beat Long Island tonight. Rest assured.
Good for them. About time.
Yeah, wow. Empty. All right. Kyle, tell us, the audience, what they can expect here on the what you're working on here on the Black and Gold Banneret here, because you got a lot on your plate right now in the next 24 hours. In fact, I want you not only to promote what you got going on Black and Gold Banneret, but what you got going on the rest of the weekend.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, tonight here, I'll be dropping very shortly the 3rd edition of Night Class, so look out for that. You'll see me evaluate Timmy McClain's performance, what the defense did, keeping streaks alive that they've had so far in 2023. We'll get more into that during the Night Class as well. And I grade each of the units before, of course, dismissing class at the end of the piece. So look out for that here very shortly as I run back up to the press box here to finish it up on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. And then tomorrow I'll be headed to Jacksonville, doing stuff for several different outlets, Jaguar Report, 3-point conversion, and A7BN Sports, all at the same time, #talent, I guess. And yeah, checking out the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs come into town with Patrick Lavon Mahomes II, Travis Michael Kelce, and of course, Chris Jones back at defensive tackle doing battle against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that could have huge implications later in the year towards the postseason. If there's a battle in the top of the seeding for the AFC, Elo, this game could be important for tiebreakers.
It's the game of the day in the NFL. I mean, the TVs, I think, dropped the ball on this. They got caught up in the Aaron Rodgers phenomenon and put the Jets and the Cowboys in a prime position, and now we were stuck with Zach Wilson in the late shift there. But
listen, it's more stuff where if you're in Jacksonville, you don't get attention. It's the same reason Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith aren't in the Hall of Fame.
No, we don't even get it back to the Jaguar deal there. Oh, no.
Hey, I'm a 49er fan. I'm just speaking the truth, buddy.
Yeah. I just want to know, we're going to have any UCF guys in Jacksonville again on the field?
I don't think Jacob Harris has been activated yet, but don't be surprised if you see him at some point. After all, he is the tallest player on the team.
All right. Yeah, all right. There you go. That's a good way to end it on there. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck the rest of the night and, the rest of the weekend. Busy time, but I know you're enjoying it.
Honor, joy, and privilege, gentlemen. Of course, special thanks to Tre Neal coming in tonight doing his thing as well. But until next time, guys, class dismissed.
That's Kyle Nash joining us here on the program, ladies and gentlemen. The stellar guy there, Nick. He's got a busy weekend, so I don't want to keep him out too late. And you've been up a long day, so let's just give me your final thoughts tonight on this game for UCF now and moving forward to Kansas State a week from tonight, 8:00 kick, first ever Big 12 conference game in the program's history. What are you looking forward, and what's in your what questions you have moving forward?
My questions moving forward are: can Timmy McClain be a little more better when it comes to throwing the ball? Like Kyle said, he does take a little bit sometimes to release, and there was a few times I thought he threw a little high, but I think those are like minor things that can be corrected pretty quickly. So will that be? That's my question going forward. and as well as can the defense help make up for any mistakes that he may make against Kansas State. And but my biggest takeaway is that, all right, warm-up schedule is done. Time to start getting ready because we're playing with the big boys now. We finally made it.
Keep it on Black and Go Banneret.com all week. We'll have to get you to set for UCF Kansas State. We'll have articles up. Kyle Nash will have a recap of this game. We'll have you ready for the broadcast. We'll try to get someone from Kansas State on during the week. And we'll, of course, cover all the other UCF Olympic sports as well. We'll have night shift every week after every UCF post football game. Well, that's going to be a late night next week, Nick.
Yep.
It's an 8 o'clock kick. So we'll have a cast here covering it after the historic game, UCF Kansas State. We'll probably be on around 11:30 midnight next week. So just be prepared for that. But it should be a lot of fun week. Thanks to Tre Neal for joining us on the program. Thanks to Kyle Nash for joining us from the stadium. Thank you, Nick. I know you've had a long day that started very early. We're not even going to get into all that, but you were in the stands.
4 o'clock in the morning, baby. 4 o'clock in the morning.
But did you have fun here? You got to co-host, got to ask Tre Neal some questions. That's not a bad day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't know we were getting Tre on until as I was running back from the stadium. So yeah, no, this was honestly today's been one of the. This is gonna sound weird, and it's probably because I need to get some sleep. But today has been one of the greatest days of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear. I'm all good for that. Beautiful. Well, get some rest. Everybody get some rest. Knights victorious. First 3-0 start in 5 years. They'll play Kansas State. Also, remember, Monday we'll find out the kickoff time for the UCF Big 12 home opener against Baylor in 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that. I will be covering that on Banneret as well. So for Nick Porcelli, for Kyle Nash. And again, thanks to Tre Neal for joining us. And thank you all who asked questions and comments. We'll get to more of them. Obviously, we had a busy show today. But hope you tune us in and down the road. But until next time, I'm Eric Lopez saying good night and charge on. This has been Night Shift.